Welcome to day 3 here at AWS reInvent. I am here as we continue to have our live casting of Pure Signal, and I'm joined today with 3 special guests. Very excited that I am joined here with Duncan Painter, who is Omnicom's platform CEO, Phil Lockhart, who is Credera's Chief Digital Officer, and Justin Bell, who is Credera's CEO. Really excited to have the 3 of you join us today. We really just want to start just with initial impressions of what you've experienced, what it's looked like for you, and just have a little bit of a dialogue of what it's been like for you so far through AWS. So I don't know who wants to jump, but Duncan wants to start.
Look, I'm firstly happy to go first and delighted to be here. Look, I think this is my first AWS reInvent, so I've not been here before. Many of my teams have come before, but this is the first time I've come. And I think what you're seeing is what we're seeing just generally across our industries, which is over the last 20 years, as technology evolves, the barriers between business people being able to directly engage with technology and produce stuff, and technologists being necessary to enable that to happen, those barriers are going down and the gaps are getting smaller. And I think what you see at AWS, particularly with the whole sort of, agentic overload, let's call it that, that's following is, look, I think the agent world is bringing those gaps tied together again. And it should and will, if done well, empower business users to be able to really use technology more effectively, if they've had the good sense to really build great foundations in data and structure.
That's cool. Duncan, I should have made you start this. Congratulations. Earlier this week, you were announced into a new role, and very excited for that. And would love for potentially for you, even you've got a long history with AWS, even if maybe at first reInvent, but maybe love for people just to give a little quick background on you and just a second of kind of what your current role is and what that looks like.
Okay, well, wow. So my role within Omnicom is I'm now responsible for building our platform or operating system that will drive the entire group and our clients, from brand strategy concept all the way through to marketing media execution, into commerce optimization, measurement execution, integration into our clients' operating platforms and back. That's the remit, and building out our capability to transform a lot of the great technology we've built. I mean, we were already Forrester's winner in terms of number 5 and the best tech in the industry. So it's not like we're starting from a bad place. In fact, we start from being the winner. But this is really about how do we orchestrate it together in a whole next generation capability that empowers us, our clients, and our clients' partners to deliver greater outcomes for their businesses.
I love that. Well, it's been so much fun just to interact with you, to know you a bit more, and I'm really excited about that. And maybe turning it over to Phil. I mean, Phil, I'm going to have a chance for you again, just introduce who you are real quick, but also I know you've been working really closely with AWS and Duncan and his teams about kind of the next generation of how we are serving our clients and thinking about some of these elements.
Yeah, sure. Phil Lockhart, Chief Digital Officer at Credera. I've been here for 15 years. It's actually my 3rd reInvent. And I think one of the biggest things that I noticed this year just about reInvent is just the scale, of it, to have 60,000, 70,000 people spread across so many different hotels. And, it's everything from all the different content, all the different announcements, but all the different stories. In particular, you get to hear the learnings from it. The things that have worked well, the things that haven't are, incredibly impactful. So I love that aspect of reInvent. It's been great since AWS is all about scale. Their scale is continuing to grow in so many different areas. So I love the opportunity to be engaged in that. Only just the day-to-day things from the clients, but just it's an opportunity to step back and look at the vision casting of how do we bring some of these great technologies that Omnicom has together, and how do we make sure we cast a vision of the best way to bring it to all the different types of clients we have, from industries, and how much they want to integrate and unify, just build, buy, and borrow within that. Omnicom has so much to offer within the space, and with the vision that Duncan's now casting with this is going to be incredibly powerful and new availability to things that the clients just haven't had.
Well, Justin, pass the mic to you, but obviously you've been here several times, but just kind of curious, your initial impressions of the week, and just kind of as you see some of these changes that are occurring.
Sure. Yeah. As Phil mentioned, the scale of it is immense. you have to plan ahead if you want a cup of coffee. It's hard to get a cup of coffee around here, which is pretty interesting. I would say one of the observations I've had this week is, as Duncan mentioned, as the tech is getting more easier for lines of business marketers to interact directly with, that's also changing the way that AWS is thinking about how they go to market. And that's one of the challenges that we're working to solve with them, is how we can, as their partner, go directly interact with marketers, but also other line of business type leaders, instead of just the traditional CTO type buyer, and really work on solving real business problems using the amazing technology that AWS provides, but also then partnered with the technology and other capabilities that Omnicom provides. And so that's been the really kind of cool part about this week, is helping tell that story, listen and learn from AWS, and just really see, how well that is all connecting and resonating, both with our clients that we're here with, but also with our AWS partners.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, I know in my experience, I've been mostly working with our clients and your teams. I've not as much chance to visit and be involved in everything, but it's just really interesting to me to see, again, that this feels like the solution-driven nature of what we're talking about, and different than, maybe in other conferences, even thinking about from a technical perspective. It just continues to build on the momentum, I think, within AI that we've been seeing throughout the course of the year. That, I think at the start of the year still was, a lot of it was still more theory and how you work through it. Now it's so much more about how it fits and how it can build, and really driving those outcomes, whether it be on AWS or other platforms. But maybe keeping a little bit back to this week, I know, Phil, you had a chance to experience some of the keynotes or some of the elements. I'm just kind of curious if you have any kind of new announcements that you think would be interesting as you're thinking about our business, or maybe our client business moving forward.
Yeah, I think in lines of like what Justin was mentioning, just the transformation from just not looking at just capabilities, but what are the problems that people are solving. And if you look at just the fact that there's been so much advancements with agents, and I think, that's been the topics, agents. So the big announcement right now is the frontier models, and it's leaning into like, how do you actually use these in a way that's useful. People are having problems with the guardrails around agents, and that was something that was done post production. It's like, okay, we made this agent, it can do a bunch of stuff. It's like, then you get to see how it actually realizes in real life, and it's like, oh wow, we need to put some guardrails in it. So the frontier models is actually taking a step back and saying, like, let's have governance within this. Let's embed some of those guardrails just by the nature of it, so I can actually have some more confidence that I can set these models out there and just let them be more independent, and have the confidence that they're going to not run rampant, within this. Actually for days, on it, which is not something that we've had that. I think if you look at, one of the things is that, like, all these processes that we're automating using agents, have been run with people, and people are really good at coloring between the lines. It's how we're taught since kindergarten. Within that, like, hey, stay within the lines. I'm not aware of like all the different ways that can go. Agents don't care about color within the lines. This is going with beautiful things. It's one of the dangerous things, within this. So the fact that they're noticing that and they're seeing that and they're embedding that within it, it's going to make those things very useful and more applicable. And there's been a huge failure rate with like agent launches, and they're going to start to see that actually be much more successful faster. So that time to make sure that agent's actually operating well, you're going to start seeing that be much quicker with just the advancement. They're learning, just like everything else, and they're embedding that in, and their focus is not just here's an agent, but like, how do we apply this specifically to the industries?
Yeah. I was with a client last night, and we were talking about really the way, even how they think about their structures, and they're an IT service structure, and they're supporting, a huge 200 plus opcos that they're in, very similar actually to Omnicom structure. And we were talking specifically around how things change. Where does that look like agents? And it was interesting conversation we were having just a few months ago. It was around models, around how to work through that. Where do you have that? But now, all these conversations, and really, where would you fit that in agents? What would it look like? What's unique? What's bespoke? And then for us in our world, whether it be more traditional consulting, Duncan, from a product perspective, where does that competitive advantage? I'd love to know, Duncan, as you're thinking about it, coming from a little bit more of a platform perspective historically, how you're thinking about that in terms of just what that looks like for you in your future in the different areas that you're building out for us.
Yeah, I think it's like all technological advancements, particularly when they come in big waves, which they always tend to do, right? Is that, for the last 2 years, everyone's been, agentic AI, this kind of agents, that, kind of the whole world is changing. Look, inevitably they are enabling a huge amount of change in a positive way for organizations, but have to be thought carefully about how they use them. But the reality of how I think about it, how I'm guiding both our platforms, but also our clients is 5 years from now, talking about an agent being a differentiator for your business and you'll be like saying, we use Microsoft Outlook in our business. It's kind of, these capabilities will just become hygiene factors. And so you've got to get back to, okay, so what's the true competitive advantage of our business and how does it differentiate? And where I really do think it comes back to, and this has been true in pretty much every model, if you go back over 30 years, and I've had the pleasure of building platforms for 30 years, is that it all comes down to, do you have differentiated and differentiated knowledge about your business and the information that you capture that allows you to leverage that in a way that gives you a competitive advantage over your other players from a systems perspective. And then from a brand and product perspective for our clients, are your products differentiated, and are we able to ensure that using these capabilities, wherever you're turning up with the consumer, you're optimized in the way that you turn up with that consistency of message and consistency of structure. A lot of our clients you can get lost in the world of AI. And I've noticed a lot of companies getting lost in the transition of AI. And, if you were just to say, take some very simple examples, which is, how do you want to have your business turn up really well in a search result driven by an LLM? Well, the answer is, be 100% consistent in everything you produce and you publish about your business and your products, because these models are going to score you on that to a higher degree than any human will. And so all that inconsistent communication, all of that 16 different ways you describe your products, the kind of mass goes into market. In the past, humans wouldn't see, they might see some of that through a search, but they wouldn't see it all. Now, what you got to remember is these LLMs are marking your homework, where they're marking 100% your homework every day. So it's just about consistency, professionalism, so it's just, I think what we're going to find is it's going to drive discipline and the need for discipline and a much more structured use of information and capability in those companies.
Yeah. Not only will it score you every day, it's going to remember what you did every day. So that's going to be a little bit different. Phil, love for you.
I was just going to just add on to it. You got to understand and just kind of hear all the depth of the knowledge, specifically within that. So one of the first things that you do with use of AI is how to make something faster. The efficiency is usually a thing, but the most important thing, everyone's trying to figure out how to be effective. The power that Omnicom has is that these processes and steps, we've been running it for, years, on this. So they know the depth of exactly not just how to make it faster, but what is the actual effectiveness, that you need to employ on that. And that's what makes a whole difference, because just because it's faster, yes, you're going to get some gains on it, but to know no, make sure you tweak it this way, because it's going to actually make sure that it resonates more, with the audience on that. That's what allows Omnicom and, Credera together, is that, yes, we know how to employ the best use of AI from a technology standpoint, but then we actually get to bring in the business domain experts in the marketing area and say, I'm looking at this specific process of maybe some targeted content. What exactly do we need to put in there? That's going to be something that's completely different, that a lot of our competitors don't have that. And what we're noticing that within it, and that's going to be the big drive. And that's exciting, because we're hearing that from a lot of different people, from the different keynotes and the different conversations that are happening. Yeah.
Just a couple of things I wanted to add was, I think and when Duncan mentioned the kind of past technological evolutions, it triggered this thought of, AI is not different in that we shouldn't be using AI just to use AI. It comes back to what business problem are we trying to solve? And we run into it sometimes with clients saying, how should we be using AI? Instead of just looking at it from, what are the ways that we should be growing our business? What are the biggest problems the business faces? And then, is AI a good solution to some portion of that problem, and treating it from that standpoint? And then second, same sort of line of thought, is like other technologies of the past, AI is only as effective as it actually gets implemented and adopted. And so change management is becoming a really, really important thing. Kind of, again, it got sort of out of favor for a season, and it's becoming really popular again, so to speak, and necessary again, because AI will only be effective and useful if it's actually being implemented appropriately and actually utilized appropriately, kind of enterprise-wide, not just in a micro task way, but to solve a wider, kind of system-wide workflow type of problem.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think it's really fascinating. Again, my roots are in management consulting and how we grow and scale companies rapidly. And what It's such interesting right now that it's about outcomes. It's not about a project. I was saying, I've had multiple conversations this week just around, we're not doing projects anymore. We're not, even working within their departments, you're not just supporting these initiatives around some outcome, how it changes. And what's like, the two of you come at it from the bits and the bytes and the data and those components. It's an interesting I love right now where we're at would be the change component, but this idea of we are get to reimagining how businesses work, how processes run. We're going to be able to do it at scale. We're going to be able to learn. I think it's going to be interesting on when are we using, AI and agentic solutions to be able to provide, relatively answers versus options that are thinking about it from a lot deeper way than we would have time to do in a normal way. And it's fascinating to me to really think about not only how that change adoption of that, but really around how we can redesign processes around and building that in a way that, at least in my career, I feel like it's being done more and faster than any time in the last 30 years. And so,
yeah. I think on that note, like the big thing, like before it's all about step change. How do you kind of make this existing process faster? Right now, people are just dumping the process on the table. Like, how do we completely rethink how this is done? We need this to be so much faster. Different players, different steps within this. Like, how does this actually need to be reimagined within it? And that's pretty exciting, and that does bring in the management consulting side. So we're thankful that we have a bunch of process specialists, within that can take a look, like, going from to type of a perspective and like, how do we actually outline this and rethink this, within it. Different skill sets that have to be developed, but it's amazing what AI is enabling and just the advances. Instead of just getting a little bit better, how do you make that huge transformational step? And we're seeing so many more companies. That's what they're all talking about, not that incremental, because is like the big step changes which require sometimes even architectural changes, but more importantly, just like being comfortable with throwing out the processes, understand you're still going to use the people. They're just going to be used in different ways and actually just more effective ways.
Yeah. Well, and I think on that, which is such an interesting how we've shifted from the fear of AI that I think was really permeating businesses and really even broader society earlier this year around that to now where we're in the back, where I think the power of connecting human ingenuity and curiosity along with these things really creates much better solutions. Well, day 3 here, tired. I'm sure we're all not exactly perky this morning and also ending towards the year. So I just would love to have maybe just one last final thought. Could be around AWS, could be reInvent, could be just as you kind of reflecting back on this year and as you start to look forward to next year. I'd love just to kind of have that and we'll get you on your day.
Yeah. So I think my reflection is that, the growth of events like this demonstrate the criticality for companies now of technology-driven solutions and business models. Right? That is sort of fundamental. You don't get to 70,000 people turning up in Vegas for a technology event unless it's sort of fundamental to the way that companies run. The other thing that from my takeaway is that, I really do think that people, how they should be thinking about, particularly with the evolution of technology and AI in how they run their businesses, is the really major brands that they run, the really major hero products they have. And this is going to enhance their hero products to some extent, but it's not going to move the needle massively. Yeah. Where it's going to really move the needle for businesses is how do they get that tail of underperforming products now being managed like their hero products? And can they do that in a way that they can now drive growth in a way that was just impossible to do previously? And so I think for a lot of companies, it's not, AI is going to make, let's take Apple, it's not going to suddenly make a massive differential to the sale of iPhone to be able to put more, it might drive a bit of efficiency, but it's not. But what it could really be doing is driving a very different approach for the organization around all their accessories, all their other products, all the products they don't have the same bandwidth and investment to make work. That's where I think the big opportunities come.
Just say, I think it's an exciting time to be in the industry overall. I love change. And so I think this is an opportunity to really rethink our business model as Credera, rethink what we're doing as Omnicom, and for each of our clients to really help them rethink what they're doing and go create an interesting future. And so I just think it's an exciting time, and it's been fun being here this week. It's an energizing way to kind of wrap up the year and then go hibernate for a couple of weeks over the holidays.
Yep.
I think it's good. And on the same lines, like the thing that's just been so fascinating for me is just how fast things are changing. I love to learn, and I love like the the new opportunities and seeing how things. So the technology is happening so often. So the optionality is important. So like for me, it's just a great time to be in the space and helping clients in so many different ways and seeing all the different things. So walking that expo hall is phenomenal. It's huge. And there's so many different things. You get to see them, applying in so different ways. So for me, it's just energizing to be around so many talented people. You get to see just brilliance, on the things I'm like, I would have never thought to kind of use this, or that's an incredible approach, within it. So to be, just encapsulated within that, in an environment where everyone's energetic and excited about that, it's been awesome. So that's great.
Yeah, and I think, that's the last thing I'd leave you with.
Yes.
These companies, these tech giants, are investing, let's just take AWS, right? 200 billion in capital expenditure on building out capability. So our job, Credera's job, Omnicom's job, is how do we help our clients springboard off of that $1 trillion of capability that's going in the markets and help them really optimize their businesses off the back of that, rather than trying to replicate or misunderstand it. And I think that's why it's so exciting for us, so exciting for Credera, because we've got the ability to really springboard customers to take advantage of that $1 trillion of investment that's going on by a very small number of people. So it's not about trying to figure out how you compete with that, or it's about how do I take that and springboard my company off the back of it.
That's great. Love that. Well, my last thought is, and just thank you all three of you. I mean, Phil, Justin, we've known each other forever, and I just love the fact that we get to continue to reinvent ourselves in new experiences, whether it's like that. Duncan, the newer friend, and I just want to say publicly that it's great to have someone at the upper ends of Omnicom that understands us a little bit more at times, and so it's just really refreshing to have these tech. We built Credera on this idea of solving complex technical problems, but ultimately with an outcome and human need with that. And I think it's been fun to have our collaboration. I look forward to what the new year brings. For our listeners of Pure Signal, thank you. That's been a great day, great week. We will come back to you and talk to you more about this afternoon and tomorrow. Have a great day.